Adam, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
So we're here to talk about, and I have to say, because as an exclamation mark, Quirewood, the musical, which I had a chance to watch on Reveal. I watched it some time ago, and I've been wanting to get you on for a bit to chat about it. I am a huge fan. I'm a filmmaker myself, and I'm a huge fan anytime somebody attempts a independent musical, because I have an idea for an independent musical, but it feels so daunting and so far removed from anything that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I remember what caught me the most when I was flicking through Reveal for things to watch. In the description said that there are like 30 original songs in the movie, or
Yeah.
over 30.
Yeah. Well, it's like some of including all the like short reprises.
Sure,
So it's
yeah.
like maybe about half that are like in like unique songs, but if you count every short reprise, it's like almost 30.
Well, start by telling us in your own words what the film is about and where you got the idea for this film.
Okay, yeah. So Quirewood is a musical. It's set in a mental hospital. It's about a young woman named Cadence who has bipolar disorder, and she's all set to be released from this hospital. But then, the doctor who's been treating her retires, and the new doctor, Dr. Jackson, comes in, and he just has this completely regressive ideas about mental health, and he just comes up with a reason to make her stay, and he just starts making life hell for all of the patients, and everything goes downhill, and it's all conveyed through music. Um, and so the inspiration or this came from initially just myself and a few friends who I was working on other films were all had an interest in doing a musical. So the main group was myself and Hannah Heckman McKenna, who plays Cadence and had a lot of experience in mental hospitals, which is where the idea came from.
Mm-hmm.
And then Riven Girl Hart was another producer, and then Brian Niedermeyer was our main music person, and he also ended up playing Dr. Jackson in the film.
Yeah, I quite like his performance. So, you write. Is this your first feature or second? Like, where in your career did this
Um,
fall in?
I did a few features before
Mm-hmm.
this. It's maybe like my fourth feature. I did a few that are like in this weird like 40 to 60-minute range, so I don't know if they should be considered features, but
I think the Academy says anything over 45 minutes. I don't know.
yeah,
Who
so
knows?
it's like whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the ones I really consider features. I guess this is maybe the fourth.
Okay.
So
So, the difference in writing, how do you approach writing a musical versus writing a traditional screenplay?
well, basically it's you just need to put songs in certain places,
Yeah.
and I think different people maybe do it different ways, but for me, I don't really we had because I had the team of collaborators, we
Hmm.
outlined the whole thing, more or less had a fairly rough outline before I actually wrote a screenplay. And in that outline, we all had a couple of ideas for songs that were like, possible songs here. So it was just as I was writing, I try to, fit in some of the songs that, myself and Hannah and Riven and Brian had come up with ideas for. And also just I'd be writing a scene and be like, oh, I could, put a song here. I could convey what's happening with these characters through a song, and just, and then, I'd come to a later scene and be like, oh, I could actually, reprise this earlier song, and just, and then, it gets refined as it goes along. And
Are
it is
you do you have a background in music or music theater at
a
all?
little bit. In high school, I, played in the school band, and I did a lot of, acted in a few school musicals. And so,
Yeah. I was on the tech
yeah,
side of things, and it's why I can't like bring myself to watch West Side Story, because I had to listen to it far too many times in high school when the
yeah,
school did it. Okay, so again, just and for the audience information too, I don't think we always get to hear a lot about how most musicals that are out there as movies. I can think of a few original ones like Anna versus the Apocalypse recently.
yeah,
I mean, the South Park guys did the South Park movie. There's not a lot of original musicals. There's some TV shows that are doing musicals recently, which is
mhm.
really interesting. But what's the process? Because you're not basing it on an existing stage play or anything. You've got to go into the studio and record the songs prior. You're not recording the music live on set, correct?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
All the At least all of the the vocals were all recorded in advance.
Hmm.
That was I almost, whenever I talk about this film, it was almost like we made a whole movie before we even started doing the movie, because it was like that much work just to get the music done. We spent like an entire summer, bringing the actors in and having them learn all the songs and, rehearse and rehearse. And then, we brought the in, and then we like spent like 4 days recording most of the music at the end of August. And it just worked out that, Renee Bergeron, one of the actors we cast, had a recording studio we were able to use, which
Oh,
just, I
wow.
don't even know what the plan was if that hadn't worked out, but that just ended up working really well for us. And, then I think a few more people who, couldn't make the main recording dates came in over the course of the next month. And then, and those were really just, vocals. So on set, when would be filming musical numbers, we just had, the vocals, and there'd be, maybe a piano track, or in some cases, another virtual instrument track, and they were very rough and, not finalized. And so then, in editing, I would, edit the scenes to those basic versions we had, and then, send them all off to Renee and Brian, who would, have to then orchestrate all the music. And that part of it took longer than anything else, because they were working on it over a year after we wrapped production, just getting all of that music orchestrated, getting a score done. It was a ton of work. And
I did a movie where we had one singer covering about 12 or 15 songs for the movie, and was, in charge of figuring out producing that. I come from a background of music videos and shooting documentaries for bands, so I know my way around studios, but like never appreciated more how much work goes into making an album
yeah,
than making this particular movie, where we also had to tackle all of the putting the songs and the music together. So when you're on, so what I want to say, there's a moment in the movie. It's the one that I remember. Maybe there are more, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. But there's a particular moment, a very important movie. Let's just say later in the movie, where Hannah's character is singing a cappella versus having the music behind her, and I
mhm.
found that just so fitting and so powerful to kind of strip everything away and just literally have it her voice, her character talking to the audience versus having all the instrumentation. What was that? Was that a choice from the beginning, or was that something you decided later in
that
post?
that without giving too much away, that was actually one of the first ideas we had. I think it was,
And she's singing live in those takes, if
yeah,
I'm not
in
mistaken,
those
right?
particular
Yes.
scenes,
Yeah.
she is singing live on set. And, kind of, yeah, and not putting as much, not singing kind of intentionally badly sometimes too, because she's a very talented singer. But yeah, that was an idea we had, when we were first developing the story. When Hannah first pitched the idea of, let's, do a musical set in a mental hospital, we started throwing around ideas. And, the concept of that, particular scene where it would switch to that, was
Yeah.
something that I just, came up with, and we spat it around, and it was like, ooh, very quickly we really liked that idea. So that was one of the earliest ideas we had.
It's a really beautiful moment, and just contrast the way the rest of the film is presented. And I really, as a fan of musicals and music, I just in music and films and the way it's used, there's so many interesting ways that people play with now to blend diegetic music and live music and
Yeah.
all kinds of things that I really appreciated that. What's the response been from audiences that have seen the film? Did you take it to festivals? Like, where did the film go? Yeah.
It was in a couple festivals. I
Yeah.
mean, just a couple festivals, like shortly after it was done. And it's overall it was positive. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
a few people said, "Oh, I don't usually like musicals, but I like this." And I mean, it's like some people, maybe it's not their thing, but then some people, I can remember at one of the festivals, were just like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And a lot of people would always say, "Oh, because it wasn't adapted from something made for the stage, but this could absolutely be adapted for the stage."
Yeah, yeah. You've got
And I
a very limited amount of sets and things that
Yeah,
keep it very truly indie. You could definitely get away with it. I'm going to guess. I haven't researched the film that much. I like to just come in sort of half blind to these interviews after watching them. But I'm going to guess that this film was shot in the Boston, Mass area, given that Sherry Lee is in it, who seems to be a very popular pick when it comes to
yeah.
casting in the area.
It was, well, it was shot. Most of it was shot. In Concord, New Hampshire.
Hmm.
Actually, the location we used was where Sherry worked at the time. Was a
Oh,
nursing
okay.
home where she worked had a floor that was mostly used for storage on weekends. And it had, a short film that I acted in earlier the same year had shot there. And then we ended up, after looking around at a few locations, that was like the best thing that was available, and it worked out really well. Yeah.
I think you were mentioning that, so Sherry having access to that location, your other actor Renee having a recording studio.
Mhm.
I do find I'm not a big one to believe in fate and destiny and guiding hands, but I do find that the larger the challenge you put in front of yourself in the indie world, and with more passion that you pursue it, doors open and things like that strangely
Yeah.
align on all of my projects. Because again, audiences, watching your film and watching Reveal have to understand independent film. It's not the same as the studio where they just hand you a whole bunch of money and
Mhm.
sometimes have a limited number of days and crew to do it. It's usually a very refined amount of people, like the minimum necessary to get the job done, and scraping budgets together and pulling every favor possible. So I do feel, let's call it like my film destiny, on those moments where, like, what are the chances that while you go to cast this, you find an actress that you really want in the film who also happens to have a recording
Yeah.
studio? And so when you were casting this, you had to be looking for people with music background, with vocal,
Yeah.
or at least vocal
Mhm.
abilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that a tougher challenge to cast than just looking at somebody's acting performance when they have to sort of, have the double-edged sword?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, we did have everyone who, all the actors either, they came in and would sing for us or sent an audition video of them singing. I think the majority of the people in the cast were people who some of us, one of us knew. We brought in, like, I know Hannah brought in a lot of friends she had, Riven brought in a couple people, and some of them, a few people were just people who some of us vaguely knew from, having worked on other projects together. So yeah, but yeah, that did add an extra layer to it. And it's like, yeah, before we casted it, rather than just having people read scenes, we would have everyone come in and sing a song for us. So that just made it, yeah, that was the whole music was just a whole extra step to the whole thing.
Director to director, because I haven't done a musical. The process of directing on set and doing your shot selection, when you get to editing, you don't have the same freedom that you have making a traditional narrative, where you can, like, oh, I'm going to let them breathe a little longer here in the shot, oh, I'm going to trim this, or I'm going to cut these lines out, because you're singing to a song. So
Yeah.
how much more work goes into sort of storyboarding and really feeling out exactly how you want the shots to, I want 2 lines of dialogue in this, or 2 lines of lyrics to go here, and then we're into this shot. Like, and then how does that work in the editing room when you don't have the same flexibility as a traditional film?
So as far as planning it, I mean, it varied from song to song. Some of the songs I would just have a very specific shots in my head for what I wanted them to be. I tried to do a lot of, like, long takes where the camera would move from this, like, the first song in the movie is all like 1 2.5 minute take, and a few of the other songs have
Mhm.
some longer takes, and then some of them are, cut up more. It varied. Some songs I'd have this very clear plan, others we'd kind of play around with stuff on set, feel like, all right, all right, we got up to this part of the song. Now we'll do this other shot that'll be for this part, so it varied from song to song. And then, yeah, editing, it was different. I feel like it usually went pretty fast, rather, because usually I'm like, if it's a scene of dialogue, I do most of my films are like comedies, so I try to make them move really fast. So I'm
Mhm.
constantly trying to, like, trim out all the spaces between this. But yeah, with the music, couldn't do that. It was, the timing of it was built into the song. So it was basically be like, I'd put down the basic version of the song that we had,
Mhm.
then find the best take of whichever, the best take of the first shot of that song, match it up so that the lip sync was in the right spot, put that there, go up to where the next cut was, go find the next. So it was very much like
Yeah, yeah.
planned in advance more than it was like not being having the ability to, like, all right, do we use this angle or this angle? It's like, all right, this verse is this shot, the next verse is the next couple lines of the verse or this shot.
I guess your one advantage is that you're not as worried about audio on set as much as a traditional
Yeah.
film. When you're trying to record sound, every time you have if it's 30 minutes of music in a 2-hour movie, you've got a fourth of, quarter of your movie.
Yeah.
It was technically easier to shoot in one department. Yeah.
Yeah. Although then, like, what I think what ended up happening, because we didn't roll any real sound when we were
Yeah.
doing the songs, but I know what ended up happening was at the very end, I went in and just recorded just Foley of a bunch of random sound effects, because there would be times when someone's singing the song and, like, she'd like throw down a book on a bed, but it
Yep.
doesn't make a
Yep.
sound, and it was just, and even in the final version, I think you can barely hear some of these sounds, but just for me watching them month after month,
It's
it's like,
there.
that should
Yep.
make noise. That should make noise. So I went.
No, the attention to detail and
Yeah,
sound, and sometimes that's what's lacking in indie films, is the real
yeah,
attention to sound. I know that a lot of it comes from budgetary
yeah,
issues, or sometimes just experience of getting to the level of like, no, everything should, every close ruffle, every, if I move my headphone, there should be some sound there. If I touch the mic, whatever.
yeah,
I appreciate the shock therapy scenes, and the sort of like that's really one of the only times you really delve into like that sort of fantasy. Look, I particularly like the way that the electrical, like conduit wires on the wall are wiggling, as well as if it's putting so much
yeah.
electricity out of there that
It was just, yeah,
everything's
I
shaking
got.
off the walls. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was some great set design. Who was your production designer? Who put those together?
I That was something I guess basically put together myself. I mean, most of those wires were. I went to Spirit Halloween on November 1st,
Yep,
of
the
the day
great
we were
discount
shooting.
day. Yeah.
And they had, I think I'd been looking around. I'd been going in there on and off throughout September, October, getting a sense of what they had, and I knew they had those electrical cords. It's like, this is just what we need for that scene. So, and the scenes happened to be scheduled for November. So the 1st of November, I went and got all those wires and stuff, and then set them up in my basement. And yeah, that ended up working out pretty well.
My best friend here in Canada, my home city, runs the Scare House Windsor, which is like the annual haunted house that you walk through. So anytime I need anything remotely
Yeah,
Halloween related, his warehouse is like a Spirit of Halloween on crack. He's got one of everything, if not two of everything. So I think, but that's my favorite stops as an indie filmmaker. It doesn't matter what my budget is. I get more and more money. I always stop at like the dollar store, Dollar
yeah,
General. I always stop at, discount sales after seasonal things. Fabricland and things like that are great places to find discounts, because if I can put more of the money I have into better crew, better gear, getting more value up on the screen, I don't want to spend it on all those things that if I'm just a little bit smarter, all of us as indie filmmakers, there's always a discount out there if you're looking for it.
yeah.
So you had a great reception of the film. You've turned people on to musicals that they maybe didn't think that they were fans of. Is there going to be another musical in your future, or is this a one and done for you?
Um, Maybe. I mean, I can't, say anything for sure. I'd like to. I mean, because I feel like it, I mean, I wouldn't have said that, 2 years ago when we had just finished it, and it was still like,
Hmm.
oh my God, because it took, 2.5 years from start
Yeah,
to finish to get it done, and it was really overwhelming. But having distance from it now, it's like, wow, we really did something that I feel like on some level, if we had known what we were getting into, I don't know if we would have done it, but we pulled it off and we got the film done. And I think we all learned a lot. It's like, now having done that, I have an idea as to how to make a musical. So I would do another one. Yeah.
awesome. Anything you can talk about that you're working on now, or are we going to see any of your other past work on Reveal in the
Yeah,
future?
I don't know if anything will be on reveal, but right now I'm kind of in the early stages of I've written a script. I'm kind of working on revising it. I've talked to a few people about it. No one's read it yet, but we'll hopefully be, starting. I mean, it's at that stage where I don't know whether I'm going to end up going forward with this or not. Just need to have the conversations with people to figure out if it's going to be possible. But
Awesome.
yeah,
The beginning stages where everything is possible and everything seems completely overwhelming all at the same time.
yeah,
I know it all too well. That's it for today, Adam. Everybody out there in the audience, reveal.net. It's 100% free. You don't have to pay a monthly fee. You don't have to give a credit card. You sign up, you get to watch all this incredible indie film content, including, with the exclamation mark, Quirewood, the musical. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today and talking about your film. I've actually learned a lot, and maybe I'll get off my butt and put my musical together.
yeah.